All right, hello. So this is the last kind of tutorial, and it's meant to hopefully get you up to speed in 3D in a more speedy way than all the tutorials do. The tutorials are great and address different aspects, but I think this works really well in the past. So what this is this little pink square, this purple square, and it is a 3D animation that is created from scratch and has you stepping through the elements of creating this faux 3D object that's actually not really 3D. It doesn't really have any volume. There's nothing inside that box. It is just the thin 1 pixel thick slabs on the side all put together to make a cube. But there's some cool techniques in that too, and then there's a camera on it, and so it's actually not moving itself. It's the camera that's moving. So if I split this view and say show this to me in 2 views, I click over to this view and change this from front to top. Top, okay, so you can kind of see it, and then select the camera, then and zoom out. You can see this is the path that the camera is traveling on, and then the camera swivels at this point. That's why you see this, kind of three-sided view of the cube, and then the whole camera turns and then backs off into the distance. So the cube itself is just standing there. That's where the camera is moving around. It gives you this illusion as if the cube was zooming through space. All right, so that's what we're going to create. For that, I'm going to go over to a comp that I have ready here. Okay, so I just want to use this to explain 3D layers. So right here are our normal transform properties. This is the only layer I have turned on. They're all 2D right now. I made them by doing Command Y to make a new solid. And then in here, I specified all of them to be the same width. And they all ended up with the anchor point in the center right here, in the center of the comp. I gave them names. That was important to me that they have the right names. Should be to you too. Left, right, bottom, top, back, front. And I also try to coordinate the colors, but it's just doesn't really matter. So this is where you put in the name, and then you have 500 by 500. This is where you change the color, of course. I've already done that, so I'm just basically pointing to the fact that these are all 2D layers with the 2D properties, and then as soon as you click this button, you get some more properties like this orientation, which features all different axes of rotation. Like if I rub this, scrub this, you can see that that's along the Y rotation. But then also full on rotational keyframeable axes. So multiple, and the difference between this and this is that I can go along the y-axis is exactly the same rotation, but I can do this 17 times or something. So I can have something spin, and I can't do that up in this option up here. Right click, reset. Okay, the other big change is that all the previous properties that were 2D now have a 3D element. They have Z depth. So right here, not anchor point, but position is X, Y, and Z. And so if I scrub this value, you can see it recedes off into the distance. Or if I pull this forward, meaning going towards 0, going towards minus values, it comes towards the camera. This often is kind of like, I've reset my mouse 3 times now, 4 times. So what you can do to get more faster values, higher values quicker is to hold shift. Hold shift and then just you do your scrubbing and it goes a lot faster. So we can, do this zoof pretty fast. Zoof. And you have to do that sound effect. Zoof. Okay, so this is all what's going on in the timeline. Up here, you have this new thing. You only have this in 2020. You have essentially, pretty much the same thing in 2019, but it doesn't look as comic bookish as this does, and it's not quite as powerful. But it has all the same basic capacities. This is called a gizmo, and let me show you what it does. If I grab a certain axis, like here the x-axis, and you can see on your cursor that it says X, you can manipulate this layer in the x-axis direction. You can move it that way. Here's Y, and where is Z? We're looking at right here, the blue one is Z. So if I drag on that, now I can also do that depth, and if I hold shift, it will go faster like we already just said. Okay, cool. Resetting this again. Okay. Beyond that, there's a few other ways to manipulate this with the gizmos. One is to go to the rotational element. So you can see here, this is a rotation, this is a rotation. You just grab and drag. So you can rotate. That's called Z rotation. Let me see if this shows up. It shows up in the Z property here in orientation, but not down in the Z rotation in the dedicated rotation. This is Y. Same thing, and then here's X. With this new gizmo, you can do stuff that you can't do in 2019, which is change this gizmo to not just be universal or just be about move, but you can also influence scale. For example, you can scale things along the XY axis and stuff like that. And you can set up your gizmo, I'm just undoing this, set up your gizmo to be dedicated to rotation or movement. Like this is the moving along the XY, so not to have accidentally any rotation in there. So you can choose. Universal is everything, I believe. If I go to one of these that little rectangle, I am influencing scale on that layer. Cool. If that all makes sense, that's great. So what we want to do with this now is build a box, and I will be back with that in a second.